2, 3, let's go!
Well, hello everybody, Anthony here. Welcome back to another episode, another tantalizing episode, I think that's a word, of the Single Parents Podcast. This is the podcast for anybody whose life's turned out a little less than traditional. It's your boy here yet again, but this week I am joined for the first time in a long time. Long time by, let's see, I don't know, the co-host, the beauty of the show, the big brains of the show, so many things that just make the show so good. But, you know, it's Nicole. It's Nicole, everybody. We have Nicole. How you been? It's good to have you.
Wow, that's a good question. I haven't thought about how I've been in a long time.
All right, let's get real.
I feel like this is the most real parent moment ever. When people ask, how have you been? What do you do? Like, what are your hobbies? No.
Life.
I parent and I try to go to bed.
That sounds like a good summary of like my Monday through Friday, if I'm not going to lie.
How have you been? I feel like it's been such a whirlwind. You came over to, I guess, drop the equipment off first. To film this, we're getting started a little bit late.
Right. Yep.
Because I was trying to prepare and I forgot to get ready, so that's why I'm gonna be honest. I have on pajamas under here, but that's okay. And then Anthony came and he brought the equipment in. Like, I saw him zooming away. I'm like, oh, maybe that wasn't him. And then he texts. He's like, hey, the equipment's at the door, but I forgot something. I gotta go back. So here we are, not entirely ready.
We figured it out. You figured it out. Yeah, because I started the day with my daughters because I just wrapped up my week with them. So did the whole dad thing all week. They went back to their mom. So I was like, okay, I'll do these last few things that I got to do around the house before I head over to Nicole's house to shoot the podcast. And then all that stuff rolled into a million other things I had to do. And the dog needed to be walked, and the girls left a mess all over my house from a week's worth of life. So I had to figure that out and get clean. So that way when I go home tonight, I can just relax a little bit before the work week and not be like so anxious and chaotic from just hair ties and towels and clothes all over the place. So then I was like, you know what? All right, I have enough time to pack up all the podcast gear. So when I show up, we'll set up. It'll be easy peasy lemon squeezy. And then sure enough, I forgot something. So I had to drop off all the stuff at her door, run home, get this equipment. You know what? But we're here. And this is what we always tell you guys is if you ever have doubts about this show, like its authenticity, it's in the fact that like, no, this is real. Like we're doing this like between a million other things we should probably doing parenting related, but we're here. And so I'm good. And so it's been good for me. As a lot of people have known, I've kind of just been getting the balls moving on the show a little bit over the last few months. So some of you who might have joined recently in the kind of the revamp, if you will, may not know, but Nicole has been with us basically since the beginning. She's been, again, just an amazing support and voice on the show that I'm excited for those of you who are new to really get to know and to hear from. But yeah, she's not new. She's been around, but we're finally able to get back together, the dynamic duo. And so you're going to be seeing this if you're watching the video.
I'm so excited.
If you're just listening, you can hear that it's going to be this.
Again.
It's going to be this. This is the show, people. So I hope you like what you see. I hope you like what you're hearing because this is what it's going to be. But so I guess like to give like a little recap of who you are for all the new folks, kind of like just give us the breakdown. What do we need to know about Nicole? I always like asking this question because I feel like I still have a lot to learn about my good friend. So why don't you break it down?
What do we need to know about Nicole? Okay, Scorpio, long walks on the beach. But aside from that, Anthony has 2 little girls. I have 2 slightly older boys. So it was always kind of fun, the dynamic. When we started this initially, we actually started on a different podcast. And I think, is this our third one? Our second or third one?
This is like our second or third attempt.
So it's been a while, but the dynamic's always been very cool because we live in an area that is somewhat more, you might say, the traditional lifestyle.
Sure.
And neither of us clearly being particularly traditional.
No.
That's a nice way to put it.
It's kind of like the tagline of our whole show is like, we're not traditional.
We don't have to be nice anymore, actually. But yes. Yeah. So finding like-minded people who tend to live in similar ways is not super easy here anyway, obviously. So we became friends, and we worked on other podcasts. We actually started together. I joined yours forever ago. It was so much fun. But that doesn't mean you need to go watch those episodes because I was very new and it's embarrassing. I don't
remember, but I guarantee I was trash.
I was definitely not used to being in front of a camera, which now I'm obviously getting over a cold. So my voice isn't great, but I feel a little slightly less awkward. But it always worked out really well because we have, fairly similar viewpoints. And especially in an area like this, it's not always easy. And being single parents, you don't always have a lot of support. And neither of us have our family super nearby. So that was another thing. And we would just talk about so many of these issues. And I feel like we kind of play well off of each other. I have sons, you have daughters. Mine are a little bit older, yours are a little bit younger. And so we have like very similar ideas, but, the different perspectives. And it's been really fun, just the whole friendship in general. I feel like it's kind of cool to like see how you're going through stuff as opposed to how I go through it, with boys versus girls and their ages and stuff. And it's really fun, actually. So we figured, film it. And because I know one thing we say a lot, like so many conversations we've had is like, how nice would it have been to have just some real support back in the day for so many things that single parents or just people in general go through. But I remember an underlying, like a common denominator of so many of our conversations was like, it's not even a bad thing. And you're either shamed or people try to make you feel embarrassed of your situation. Being a single parent is still touted in such a negative light in so many places. And I remember you were one of the first people that I talked to that was like, no, like I like this and this is how I prefer things. Like if that change is cool, but like this is not a problem. So I feel like it just like it's gone pretty smooth, and I love getting to do this with you.
No, it's fun. It's fun because I think ultimately already what we're finding with the show, just even in its like early days of like really getting into it, is that there's so many people out there who can relate to the stuff that we go through. So there's people out there who are trying to figure out how to juggle a million different balls in the air while also trying to do self-care, while also trying to maintain relationships, while also trying to deal with all the external social pressures that come with just not even just being a single parent, but being a parent in general, and then being a man. What does that mean? Being a woman, what does that mean? All these different things that we show up to having on our plate on a day-by-day basis. It's really easy to just to think that we're alone in that and nobody else is kind of dealing with some of those things. And so one big thing that we're just so big on this show is we're just going to show up and we're going to be real. And that doesn't mean like everybody's going to agree with 1,000% everything we say, and that's fine. We want this to be a discussion, and we'll talk more about how you can join that discussion in a minute. But we're just going to show up and be real and be honest and be as authentic as possible to hopefully not only just allow ourselves to have a venue where we can kind of unleash a lot of the stuff that we've been carrying around week by week, but to hopefully give you all, the listener, a chance to just know that you're not alone. And there's some friends here who get it, who can sip on some wine while we kind of break it all down, who can just say, we don't even know how and why stuff is like this. But that's why we say, like, you know what? Life is not always so traditional, even though it's been kind of beaten into us in a lot of different ways, especially growing up, that things need to look like this, X, Y, Z. And then sometimes we get to adulthood or even young adulthood and we realize like, oh, well, crap, my life didn't turn out like the white picket fence, 2.5 kids, husband and wife, model that I was kind of put into my brain going up. So is there something wrong with me? Is there something wrong with my choices? Is there something wrong with my life? So on and so forth. These are all the things that a lot of us just carry around. But for us, when we have the show, we just say like, you know what? No, like life just isn't always so traditional. It's not always so black and white. Sometimes there is a lot of gray, as we like to talk about. It's like our favorite color here on the show is the gray, because
that is intentional.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's just good to be here with you, to be here with all of you. I hope all you listeners out there are doing well. I hope this is the time where you can kind of do like a little body, mind, soul assessment about how you're doing. And as we say often on the show, if you're not doing well, if the reality is like, hey, like I'm not good, Anthony, I'm not good, Nicole, life is crazy, I don't know what's going on, then that's okay. It's okay to not be okay. Just know that, again, you're not alone. You have some support. Yeah. I mean, what would you say to the person who's like, Nicole, I'm not doing all right now?
Like, that's okay. And just like you said, it's so funny because while you were talking, it was like, like people be like, it's okay. And sometimes you're like, no, it's not. And I'm like, I know that's okay too. It is okay not to be okay. Yeah. You don't have to have it together. You don't have to, oh my goodness. One of our favorite ones. I feel like we've like done this so much that we're like, we really need to just do this, like, you know, on the show with, you know, a group who can share in the same conversation, because, you know, how many times have you been told, you know, you chose parenthood, or even if you didn't choose parenthood, to stop complaining and to just, or my favorite, the gaslighting, like, oh, well, if anything's hard, it's never allowed to be hard. You're not allowed to have an off day. They just tell you to soak it up while you can, and they're not going to be this little forever. And everything you can imagine other than, yeah, it is hard. And it's okay to be tired. Like, of course, any normal person would be tired, and that's okay. And you don't have to constantly act like everything is rainbows and sunshine 24/7, because let's be real, it's not at all. And it doesn't mean you don't love your kids. It doesn't mean you wouldn't have them again. But realistically, you know, it's not fun 24/7, and it's not always rewarding or gratifying or every other term. And what I notice when I'm talking about this is that everything that people tell you about parenthood, trying to make you feel guilty, if you ever notice, is usually kind of selfish. They're like, it's so gratifying. And like, you know, I feel like it should be a little bit more about the actual kids in the equation sometimes. But how often do you hear people say, you know, with your kids, enjoy it while it lasts, because, you know, they're so cute at this stage. And like when you have babies, they're so cute. And when they just come and hug you and love you unconditionally and all this kind of stuff. And it's, a lot of it is very, which, not that there's anything inherently wrong with enjoying, you know, your part in parenthood. But when I've noticed a lot of time, if you're having a rough parenting day, I've noticed a lot more people tend to focus on, you know, sort of what you get out of it, to focus on that, rather than, you know, well, your kids are going through things too. It might seem like they're driving you crazy or giving you a hard time, but the truth is 9 times out of 10, they're having a hard time. And I feel like that's papered over so much, you know, and so many people act like it's either you don't get to have a bad day because, you know, you're a parent, so you have to make it seem great. Or if you are having a bad day, it's the very same people will tend to almost take it as a personal attack from their kids. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I see that. I was just thinking about this because I was talking to a friend, single mom, like, who's just really like going through it and just trying to like figure stuff out, like trying to like make these big decisions for her and her kids, like even like moving to a new town and just trying to start over and trying to be around more family. But she's just getting all these voices from all these different perspectives and people like, well, this is what you should do and this is what you should do, and you shouldn't be moving and you shouldn't be starting over, you shouldn't be this. So she's just trying to like put her foot down. And so she was just talking to me, and I think she just kind of like, you know, you shake up the soda bottle and stuff flies out, because I think after a while she was just like, you know what, like what people don't understand, the people who say all these different things, sure, they might like mean well, and sure, like they might like trying to help, but what they don't understand is the context behind some of these things. Even like on a simple day and a simple decision, like giving my kids like McDonald's for lunch or dinner, let's say dinner. So somebody would look at that and be like, well, you shouldn't be feeding your kids McDonald's. That's not healthy. That's not this. You should be cooking them, you know, salmon and lettuce and all these type of different things. And her point is like, well, okay, sure. Like, yeah, I get it. But context is single mom, drop my kids off, got to go work a double at this restaurant because that's how I make money. Then I got to pick up my kids from the sitter, bring them home, get them bathed, get them ready for school the next day, do the laundry, do all this, do that, do that. So if there's one little thing that I can do to help just give me a little bit of sanity and the list of things I have to get done, then I'm going to do it. And if that thing that will help out is not having to think about cooking up a salmon and spinach dinner on top of all the other stuff I have to do, and it's going through McDonald's and grabbing a couple Happy Meals tonight, sure, it's not going to be every night, but if that's what's going to help me on that day, then I'm going to do it. And screw you for judging me for that, because you're not in the rest of the context of my life when it comes to all these different things that I juggle. And then, like you said, there's going to be the people who are like, well, it's not my fault. You're a single mom. Like, you put yourself in that situation. Like, so you can't complain about all the things you have to do. That's blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, just stop. And, do you. I'm going to do me and what's best for my kids. And at the end of the day, as we always say on the show, like, as long as you're truly just doing the best that you can by yourself and by your kids, even if it means getting them McDonald's once a week or whatever, then that's okay.
And that's the thing, guaranteed. Mom did do salmon and salad night. Mom probably did like a veggie lasagna night, or, mom probably does cook most nights. And what I've noticed a lot of the time is, especially in situations with two-parent homes, let's be real, there is often a parent that does all of these things, but if one day she's tired or he's tired, obviously, we're going through McDonald's. And that's the thing. Is it good for kids? No. But once in a blue moon, is it going to hurt them? No. And, when you look from their perspective, which again, I feel like gets papered over all the time, like, kids are what's usually forgotten in parenting in so many of these conversations, and it drives me crazy. But my kids, we rarely get fast food. I know. I've been told I'm a little strict about it. However, when we do, when I tell you how excited they get and how fun it is, so Taco Bell, that's their jam. What is that thing called? It's like, you remember when we had the Mexican pizza growing up, and now they've got it in a tortilla with the...
Yeah, it's like a chalupa or the gordita or something ita. It's with the A.
It's
I
like
know.
a disc.
A Crunchwrap Supreme?
Yes.
Peak food.
Okay.
Peak food.
So the Crunch...
Oh, I heard her son drooling from the other room. He heard the Crunchwrap Supreme. He was like, oh, yeah.
Now I'm going to have to go get one of those after this. But that's their jam. And I don't know if we even do fast food once, maybe twice a month. And when we do, they're so excited. Or if it's been one of those days and I've already been working 2 jobs and, from home, but still, sometimes that is worse. But, working all day, dealing with people all day, somebody forgot this, so I had to stop and bring him his lunch, and they had a fundraiser they forgot to tell me about until the time it's going on, and things like this. And instead of going to okay, now let me go cook dinner, we stopped by, Little Caesars, they have the hot and ready things, they're just ready to go. So y'all that want to, like Anthony said, have no context of what goes on in the home, but see this much and say, hey, this is what makes you a bad parent, but it's not my business. If you're going to mind somebody else's business that hard, then actually mind it that hard and think about all perspectives, because the kids are usually having a blast.
Yeah.
And the kids are usually really well cared for. And mom probably did make salmon and salad and she probably makes sure they get the, super pure water and have their vitamins. And who do you think is doing their hair every day? Single parents do double time and a half, if we're being real. Yeah. So the once in a blue moon, they want to treat their kids with something that is not, the healthiest thing in the world. I think that's a good thing, that gives them balance. It gives them, those fun surprises and those memories.
That's a good point.
It's so many people like to look from the outside in and say everything's either or, even though I know nothing about your situation. I'm going to judge what I see.
Yep.
And it's almost always coming from some insecurity in their place. But
that's true. That is true.
I think that's something that we've noticed is that a lot of people who see single parenthood, or perhaps their own situation where they stayed together because they didn't want a broken home, may not be quite what they were hoping it would be.
Yep.
And they can get very defensive and they will, you could just be minding your own business, having a great day, and somebody comes up and tells you, hey, you're not having a very great day. What? And I think a lot of it is projection.
Yeah. That's true. That's good. And I think that kind of goes into what I wanted to really talk to you about tonight. This whole idea of what is this interpretation of things and versus what's reality when it comes to not just perceiving parenthood, single parenthood, but to when it comes to being a parent in general. So I want to talk to you about that in a sec. So this is going to be a good segue. But really quick, if you guys are enjoying what you're seeing so far and you think this whole vibe is good, then there's a couple things I want to ask you to do really quick before we really get into some stuff tonight. Number one is that if you like the show, then please just make sure you're subscribed on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you hit turn on. I think it's like automatic downloads you can do to where our faces just show up on your phone or whatever every single week. Just do that so you never miss an episode. And then the next thing that you could do is just rate us 5 stars. Not rate us. I mean, you could rate my face if you like. Give me a 10 out of 10 on that if you would. But the show, you can rate the show 5 stars so that way it'll just tell the algorithms out there that this is legit and it'll push it out to more people. And then last but not least, share the podcast. Share the podcast with your friends, family members, neighbors, the guy at the McDonald's drive-thru, the girl at Taco Bell making the Crunchwrap Supremes.
Because you probably had a hard day trying to feed everybody's crazy kids after school.
Oh, yeah. So they need a little encouragement, too. So share it with them. Share it with everybody. And let's just keep spreading this thing around. And then I did mention earlier, we want this to be a voice, want this to be a community. So you can use our social DMs, handles, message us there. It's all over Instagram, TikTok, X. I keep wanting to say Twitter, but it's X now. Facebook, all that stuff.
Comment.
Just search the Single Parents Podcast. Gotta remember the name of our own show, and it'll be there. But we do have an email, thesingleparentspodcast@gmail.com. That's thesingleparentspodcast@gmail.com. You can use that to share your story, to share anything you agree with, disagree with. We literally just got like a big email from a listener yesterday.
Oh my gosh.
That we'll talk about later and maybe on a future episode of the show. That was like really heavy and intense, but like real, and
so
that's what it's all
relatable.
about. So use that email. So that stuff is all there. Now, Nicole, the big thing I wanted to talk to you about with this whole thing about like reality versus like perception when it specifically comes to parenting itself. I think we're just going to be real. We're going to get into it. This might be a
how I
little,
feel about this.
this might push some buttons. We're going to get into it. When it comes to parenting itself, there's often people who stepped into parenting because they truly did want to be parents and all the stuff that comes with being a parent, versus people who maybe engage with parenting because maybe they like the idea of having kids for whatever reason. Does that make sense? There's parent here. Let's just say it like this. There's people who are parents and then there's people who have kids. And I think there's a difference between that. So when I immediately throw that out there, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm going to go one step further. And
okay, do it.
We're going to get so much crap.
Oh, that's fine.
It's okay,
Let's
though.
go.
We're used
Let's
to
go.
it.
This is it.
Rather than saying there are people who have kids, I would say there are people who had kids. Like they made the move to they had kids.
Yeah.
But after that, okay, I guess we're doing this.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
You know how I feel about this. So
I know. This is what I wanted to get into.
I've said for a long time, I feel like there are people who genuinely wanted to be parents and wanted to raise kids. And then I feel like there are people who wanted to have kids. I think it starts with, I feel like a lot of this is habit. And if there is anything that I feel like shouldn't be done just because it's always done, it is huge, monumental decisions. But how crazy. So I think I told you a while back, my teenage son said something. He at the moment is not really the mindset, like, I don't really know if I'm going to want kids, you know, with the other things I want in life, which, you know, it's a normal, you know, obvious thing to think about. And I think he made the mistake of saying it elsewhere and received some backlash. And my son is 15. But he already received backlash for just the possibility that he may not want kids. And he was like, that's not how that should have gone. I'm like, no, I'm right there with you, because it's insane to me that one of, if not the biggest permanent life decision that will change every single thing about your life, that should not be the obvious thing. And then choosing not to have kids is like the big decision that you have to make an announcement about. I feel like that should be the opposite, you know? Like,
that's true.
If you were to tell people, hey, I'm getting married, if they had never met a partner of yours, they would be like, what the hell are you talking about? You're getting married. We didn't even know you're with somebody. Have you thought about this? But you talk about, I don't know if I want kids. What do you mean? Of course you want kids. How does that make any sense? Like, I've never understood why that is. I guess I kind of understand. We've talked a lot about how a lot of the parenting that seems frustrating to both of us, I feel like a lot of it is done out of habit. You know, it's kind of I vote this way because my dad voted this way because his dad voted this way, all of whom did it because they learned from other people who didn't know what the hell they were talking about, and that's just how it is. But something as permanent and heavy as having children. That's like 18 to life. And it's always been wild to me that is the obvious choice, but not making that huge life-altering permanent choice would be the crazy thing to consider. Do you know what I mean?
Definitely.
So I feel like a lot of people just went ahead and had kids and then later maybe realized, I feel like a lot of people don't even think, was this really for me, or is this for me? Like,
damn.
They've been so just drowning, like you said, other people's opinions. Everybody else has an opinion that, of course, you want kids. Of course, like that white picket fence thing you said. And one thing I know she said earlier, I didn't know if I should, but here we say the thing, so I'm just going to say the thing. Like, what if I don't get the white picket fence thing? But honestly, like, a lot of us did get that. You included.
Ooh, that's true. That is true.
And it wasn't the dream. And that's not to speak ill of like any relationships, but I feel like so many of these things are not a one size fits all. And so many of us like kind of jumped in and tested the depth of the water with both feet before realizing, maybe not everybody does the white picket fence and the getting married and the having kids, but so many of us like already did that. It's at the point where I feel like there are two people in this situation. The ones that, like we were mentioning, will just judge everything you do. You're not allowed to complain. You chose this, even though a lot of us were not raised in environments to do much choosing. It's like, well, of course you want to do this. Or they get very bitter and everything is, oh, my kids just live to make my life miserable. How much of that have you heard from people?
Right, true.
They either act like parenthood, there's the people who act like it's the biggest blessing in the world, so you shouldn't ever have a single realistic word to say about it. And I say realistic because I don't think it's bad.
Right.
I think it's hard.
Right.
And I think a lot of parents are trying to be honest about how hard parenthood is, and they're being told that they're saying bad things when they're just being honest about hard things. Like, it doesn't mean you don't love your kids, that kids are really fucking hard.
Yes.
And
amen, sister.
And that's... So you've either got the people who are like, how dare you complain? This is a blessing. Or the people who act like they're just miserable all the time. And they act like their kids are the ones to blame. That like their kids live to make them miserable. And those are both just nuts to me. But I feel like a lot of what I see from the first set of people, a lot of it is they did not stop to think about having kids. They were just told, yeah, of course kids are what you do. And maybe they're trying to make the best of it, but I feel like anytime people get that defensive over you being honest about parenthood, I feel like there's a reason why, because the more honest we are now about the realities of parenthood, fewer people are having kids because they are being more intentional. They're thinking about it first. And parents are finally becoming a little bit more honest, like here.
Like, I'll just say it, like, being a parent is hard. Yes, there's a lot of great rewarding things. Yes, I love, like, putting my girls to sleep and watching them sleep after a very busy day, and they're so cute, and I do
the creepy mom too.
Yeah, we all do it. We all do the creepy thing where you're like,
they're so beautiful and sweet when they're quiet and
when they're like knocked out. Yeah, then they're cute. But so we do that. Like, we love when they write the notes and we get to go see their school plays. Like, there's a lot of great rewarding things, but like, straight up, and you fellow parents out there can say an amen to this, like, it is freaking hard. Like, there's constantly just things you got to navigate that you weren't prepared for. And there's late nights where, for my daughter, her jaw's been hurting. I think she's like growing like molars or something in her teeth, whatever. She just won't sleep at night because something always like hurts or aches or a little, cut on her leg keeps her up. And so you don't sleep. And then you got to be here and you got to pay for this and you got to do this. And like, it's just a lot and it's hard. And if you're not realistic about that, like, I don't think anybody, even if they decide to like navigate all that and assess all that and decide they want to be a parent and like, okay, I get it, it's going to be tough. Like, even then, I don't think anybody can fully expect to know like what's all going to happen until you're just in it. So that's fine and that's fair. But to be realistic about the fact that, and we talk about this a lot like in our day and age and for people like our age especially, to be realistic about the fact that, you know, like the stuff that you're seeing on Instagram, TikTok, you know, the cute mom who has all their kids' lunch cut into like beautiful little shapes and sorted out, and they're like, this is what I did with my kid
Those
today.
are so
vlog.
cool.
Like that seems nice, like sure, but that's not what parenting is like. So don't, number one, step into it. If you are stepping into it thinking that it's going to be like so smooth and so Instagrammable 24/7 like those parents try to make it seem, because it's not. And number two, if you are a parent and you're like, well, I'm not singing with my kids karaoke on the way to school. I'm stressed out because we're 5 minutes late because they forgot their backpack and they didn't brush their hair and they didn't tell me they had a project due. So we had to go to Walmart to buy cardboard at 11 o'clock at night.
Last minute.
And you're like, well, how come we're not singing, you know, Taylor Swift karaoke on the way to school like those people on Instagram? It's because that's just not how it is. Like 9 times out of 10, you're going to be driving to school stressed out and wanting to like kick your kid out of the car on the side of the road and just say, screw it. Like that's the reality.
And I joke with my son, I'm like, I'm already saving up for your therapy bills when you're older. Because I'm sure there's going to be a name for them if there's not already.
Yeah.
The kids of millennial parents who are the ones trying to like do things differently. Because we didn't have the playbook. We're kind of doing that now, I guess.
Mhm.
So our kids are probably going to, you know, we'll see how it goes.
I think I think we're just trying to figure it out. Again, we always say on the show, doing the best we can. And so I think I want to use this time to say like kudos to like you parents out there who like, again, we're like, you know what, like maybe stuff would have been different. Maybe I should have assessed more, maybe this or maybe that. But the reality is you're a parent, you're a mom or you're a dad, single or not, you are a parent, and you still choose rather to show up, love your kids, support your kids, give your kids a safe, healthy environment, even though it's not easy. Like those are the parents, like I want to say kudos to, like the mom I was telling you about, the McDonald's mom. Like, yes, stuff is hard, 3 kids, single moms, working doubles at the restaurant, but she's always making sure that her kids are safe, are loved, are all these different things, despite the hardship, despite like maybe some things she would have thought through differently in the past, versus people who, again, like you said, maybe have had kids or, you know, technically have kids, and yet they just try to like do the bare minimum to like skate by the definition of being a parent, but they're like not really there. They're not really putting in the work. They're not really doing the effort. I guess mostly when I'm speaking of like the context of like men, because that's kind of the context and the reality that I just am inundated with a lot, is like for us as men, it could be really easy for us as a parent just to really get by with just doing the bare minimum and still being like, oh, great dad. Oh, you're awesome. Yeah, you're doing the whole thing. When in reality, like, I think we as men can overall be doing a lot more to be a true parent. And I wanted to read this quote that my friend put on, I think X. Again, I was going to say Twitter, but it's not Twitter.
I'm not calling it that.
But I really
It's
like
Twitter.
this. She said, you know, the Instagram dads, the ones that only show up when they can be seen being a dad, they take their pic and post them for the praise of like, oh my gosh, you're such a great dad. And then pass the kids off the second it's done. Yeah, don't have kids with those people. And I like read that and I was like, damn. But then I'm like, so here's the thing. I read that. I'm like, geez, girl. But then I was like, if there's anybody who should like get that and honestly be offended by the men, the parents who do that sort of thing, are like guys like me. I'll just say, and this might be super like boastful or whatever, but just the men like myself who do show up for our kids, who are there tucking our kids in at night, who are reading the stories, who are staying up late, doing the whole like caring for them when their tooth hurts, who are packing their lunches, who are doing the drop-offs, who are going to the school performances, who are paying for the gymnastics, basically the men who are legit striving to be a real parent, versus the men who, this is one of my big pet peeves of all time, is when usually it's like the mom will say this or somebody whatever will be like, oh, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I have a night away from my kids because their dad is babysitting. And like, babysitting? Bullshit. That dad's not babysitting. He's parenting his kids. So why does he get to do the bare minimum watching the kids for a couple hours while mom goes and has girls' night and he gets patted on the back? You're such a great dad, Stanley, for watching the kids 2 hours. Like, no, like, are you kidding me? Like, I know this gets me going. So like I'm saying, guys like us, parents like us who are like there, we should take offense to that and be like, no. You don't get to try to give yourself a pat on the back for showing up. Like I get different contexts or whatever. So like maybe the best that you can do with like your custody and stuff is only be there every other weekend for your kid, because that's when you're only allowed to, like, legally. Like fine, sure. Then you make the most of that every other weekend with your kid. That's not what we're saying. But it's the parents. I think with the tweet I was reading from my friend who
the
were
Facebook
like,
dads, the
yeah,
Facebook moms.
they're like, they have opportunities to really be there for their kids, but they don't. They do it again for the praise, the Facebook pictures, the whatever. Maybe they have a girlfriend they're trying to impress for the moment, so then they'll start getting their kids a little bit more.
That's when you get the phone call.
Yeah, like
when there's a new young lady.
Okay, but then when
when it's 11:30 p.m. on a random Tuesday night, and I want to talk to my kid. Who is this?
Yeah, you didn't want to last week.
That's
but
a new girlfriend.
When everything's kind of settled and nobody's around, then you get the, hey, can you come pick up Bobby? Like, you can come get him if you want. Like, I don't really, we're done hanging out, like, whatever. And
but you're right. Like,
I'm like,
this
okay.
is what drives me crazy. Yeah. Like, and again, this is part of why we decided, like, no, you know what? We need to actually, and I know everyone's like, oh, just what we need another podcast. But this one, this one is necessary because you're right. Like, how low does society put the bar for dads? Mm-hmm. And it is bull. Like, I've even been, okay, so my kids, like, there's not much of a whole dad. Anyway, that's another story for another day. But I have been, like, it's just me and my kids most of the time. My older one occasionally, but for the most part, it's just me and my kids. Do you know, there have been times that, so like it's summer break and your kids are with you a lot, and then they go back to school, and, you know, there's, I don't know if maybe cashiers that are used to saying you forget that school's in session, but I've been asked more than one time, oh, no kids today? I'm like, no, whole person here. But then, do you know how many times it's followed up with, oh, is dad watching them? Yeah. And like, sometimes they'll say babysitting, but sometimes I'm like, oh, is dad watching them? I'm like, and even though there is no dad at home, I'll still sometimes, because I'm not trying to be mean about it, but I feel like it needs to be checked. I'm like, you mean parenting them?
Parenting, yes.
Like they would be his kids. Do you mean parenting? But how often will they say, is dad watching the kids, or is dad, your favorite word, babysit?
Ooh, gets me going. Like, and then men will be like, well, I'm working all day. So like when I get home, maybe all I can do is like, be there for a little bit for my kids. Like, then I just say like, okay, and like, sure, you work all day, but that doesn't mean you get to half-ass being a parent when you get home. Because guess what? Like at the end of the day, like if you truly want to be like a real parent, if you really want to truly be like a real man, then you gotta suck it up and show up with your kids and not whine about the fact that, well, I worked all day and I did what I had to do. I pay the bills around here. So, why do I need to care so much about what's going on with my kids? Like,
you just touched on one of my sore spots. I'm like, if your job in paying the bills is your get out of parenting card.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I think that can go for anybody, man or woman, but a lot of times it's the men. But like for I guess,
whatever parent is working outside the home, I'm sorry, but the other parent, if they're working in the home, they're working in the home. Work. Like with the burgers. Okay, this was years and years and years ago when other things were still present. But if I would feed like my kids, fast food and post it, I guarantee you maybe some likes or whatever. Oh, cute little thing with their kids, but I guarantee you also some bullshit about feeding my kids fast food. Now, if another parent who sees them, I don't know, once a year shows up and takes them for burgers and posts pictures, what a great dad. Yep. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing. Like there is such a double standard.
Yeah, it really gets me, like this whole idea. Because again, I know for a fact that there's true parents out there, men and women, who are legit showing up every single day exhausting themselves to truly do the best by their kids. And sure, there's going to be days where they quote unquote fail because maybe they get so upset about something, they just kind of end up blowing their top, and there's conflict or whatever, or maybe they're just so exhausted they can't get very much done and the laundry piles up. Sure, that's going to be fine, but at the end of the day, as long as they could say like, I showed up, I tried my best, cool. And we know who those parents are, and if you're one of those parents, kudos to you. But I think the whole point of this is to say, like, there are a lot of people out there who technically have kids or have had kids who really just didn't do the whole like real assessment, I guess, that she was talking about before, of like all the things you got to consider before having kids. They have kids and then they just kind of want to do the bare minimum of parenthood for whatever reason, whatever it is. And that goes back to that selfishness point you were talking about. And it's just, it sucks. It really does, especially if you're in a co-parenting situation or even a marriage where you are basically doing it all when it comes to the parenting. Like maybe mom's still in the picture, maybe dad's technically still in the picture, but like by definition, by technicality they are, but really they're not. It's just you doing like literally everything. And when the other parent does get the kid, it's only a matter of time before you get the call like, hey, actually, can you come pick up little Bobby? And so like it's just like exhausting and it's a lot. But again, I just want to say kudos to those of you who are showing up and actually, even if the judge says you only get your kid once a month, that's all the time you get to spend with your kid, even if that's all that you have, and you show up and you make the very best of that once a month with your kid, and you show up and you're present and you love them, then kudos to you too. So it's not even about the quantity of time. It's about like, what do you have? And are you truly showing up being a parent, not a perfect parent? Again, we're going to fail.
That's not a thing.
No such thing. So give yourself grace, but are you still showing up trying to do the best you can? If so, cool. If not,
I think
lame.
a good marker of that is if a child trusts you, if a child, like, if they're confused about something or worried about something or they're hurting about something, if your kid will come to you, I feel like that's a pretty good marker of your level of involvement with them. Like, so, it's like if your girls get hurt or if something's bothering them, they run right to you.
Yep.
And I've noticed there are a lot of family dynamics I've seen where the kids will go straight past one parent who is like on the couch or something and go look for the parent who's busy.
Interesting.
And you can spin that how you want, but I feel like at the end of the day, things are kind of telling as to who usually
kids know.
Parents.
That's a good point. The kids will know.
Like, one thing I do try to do when I feel like I have not handled things well or I've not shown up how I should have for my kids, like, and it's I didn't do this when they were super young. I had to, kind of reparent into progressive parenting, but I'm honest with my kids and I will go to them. Like, that's where you kind of got to throw any ego or whatever out the window. And I will go to my kids and I'll say, I know this day went like this, and
yeah, that's good.
I know this may not have gone the way you wanted, or I may have been short, or I may not have given you the ear that you needed for this, or I may have snapped. I apologize. That was not your fault. That was me just feeling overwhelmed and not handling it well. Like, I'm sorry. Or there's been times like I told my kids, I'm sorry I couldn't like make a real dinner, and if we just had to swing by and grab pizza or whatever. And almost every single time, like, kids are so much, like, in some ways kids are such better people because they're so quickly forgiving. Like, when they know I feel like when they know they're loved and they trust their parents, kids are so forgiving. Oh my God, there's days that I thought I just completely did not show up for that day, did not handle that day well. And I'll tell my kids, I'm sorry, I wanted the day to go better. And like, no, it's okay. And like, they'll hug you and they'll be like, no, this was fun and that was fun. And we actually really like this. And they're so like, they're better people than I am. But, I feel like when kids they see you owning up to, hey, I did not react well and that was not your fault. And I apologize for that, and not making excuses, but just being honest. Like, I did not handle that well and I should not have raised my voice and I apologize for that. Like, are you okay? I feel like when they see you owning up to making mistakes, that, they know that they're like, people make mistakes and you just like figure it out and talk about it. And then you can see the ones that, like you said, the parents technically have kids, but they're just kind of there because they will just beeline right past that parent.
Or you hear them say like, "Oh, I don't like want to go to mom's house," or "I don't want to go to dad's house," or "I don't like." They'll say like little stuff like that because again, kids are smart. Like, sure, they may not know how to do algebra, but they're good at
I mean, I know.
navigating BS and
Algebra's
understand.
hard.
Yeah, I don't even want to use that example. I don't know algebra, but they're good at like they have a good BS meter, and they're good at like internalizing what is truly safe and healthy for them versus seeing what's just like, nah, that's not it. And not saying that if maybe you've kind of effed up before and haven't been like a true like present parent, that it's not too late to fix that. You can still choose to actually be there for your kid, and it's probably going to take work and you probably have to build back trust, but that's any relationship. But I think at the end of the day, as you were saying, the key to this whole thing is just to really see the kids that you do have as people, not, little versions of ourselves that we can mold into our own image, not accessories to use on social media to get likes, not, little things that we think are going to be fun and convenient because all of our friends said, not even a way to satisfy the external pressures of life that get put on, especially for women, to like kind of, all right, I get it. Like, your mom, you want a grandkid. All right, here's a grandkid. Or as a woman, I'm supposed to be having kids because they get asked that a million times. So here it is. Those aren't reasons to have kids. If you're going to have a kid, you're going to love them, but truly see them as the little people that they are as you're just showing up, even if those days you show up aren't perfect days.
But I love that you said that because I feel like there's, up to a point you can salvage a relationship even with your kid. But I feel like a lot of people, this is again where I say like people really a lot of times do not treat their children like literal human beings, and they will expect, well, I'm your parent. Like, obviously, like you're supposed to love me. You're supposed to be with me. Yep. I'm going to be honest. I feel like with your kids, it's bullshit to expect more than you're putting in. And to be honest, as a parent,
good. I like that.
It's your job to put in 90% of that. Like, kids are kids. They didn't ask to be here. They don't know how to navigate anything yet. You're their primary example when they're growing up of how to adult. And so many parents are like, oh, kid. Oh, I hate this phrase. I know I hate this phrase. Oh, they just raise themselves. It'll take care of itself. No, the fuck it doesn't. Nothing takes care of itself. Somebody takes care of it for you, and you think it takes care of itself. No, it doesn't. But kids are still learning literally everything. So many parents don't bother teaching them the nuances or the subtleties or the details, but then they get mad at their kids for not reacting well. When how often do we as adults, I don't handle everything perfectly, but somehow we put kids on this like higher level of expectation and behavior than we do. So your relationship with your kids, especially if you're not there on a regular basis, that is entirely your job. And expecting a child to just automatically be happy to see you and be super happy to, see you in whatever light you're wanting to be seen, that is not the responsibility of the child, and it never will be. Like that, I guess we kind of veered there, but that is a super hot button point for me.
No, that's real. That's good.
Like, so many people expect their kids to just automatically be subservient and loving. And, how many people have you seen tell people that are considering whether or not to have children, oh, you should. It's unconditional love. Nobody
No.
Or who'll take care of you when you're old? Stop having kids when you need a pet or a stuffed animal.
Yeah, you need a dog. If
Please stop having kids so you have somebody. Puppy. Like, do you know how much therapy these kids are going to need? Because there are literally people who are like, oh, well, at least you'll have somebody who'll always love you. First of all, no, they won't. That is not guaranteed. Like, it's not you are pregnant, so your DNA says they love you. That's not how that works. It's like any other relationship. You're going to get out of it what you put into it. And putting these unfair pressures and expectations on kids because they're your kids. Like, oh, what is it when people are like, I fed you and clothed you? That is the bare minimum. It's the literal law. Like, you chose to have children and you're sitting there bragging to them. Well, I brought you into this world and I even fed you. Like, what do you mean you're unhappy about anything? Like, What?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I like
this thing
it.
gets under my skin a little,
I
but
love it. I love it. Well, what do you all think? Again, this is our kind of thoughts and opinions on this whole subject. I knew when we were talking about wanting to talk about this today, like it would maybe ruffle some feathers.
I did ask. I was like, "Are you sure?"
Because I just know, like, it's gonna offend people, especially the people. Honestly, it's the what did you say? People who like have like that own like insecurity within themselves about where they're at. They're always going to be the loudest voice to push back against it. So I knew when we talk about this, there's inevitably going to be the parent out there who has kids but isn't really showing up as a parent, and they're probably not going to like all the stuff we just had to say. But at the end of the day, like, who cares? Because there are true parents out there who need to hear that they're kicking ass. You guys are doing great. Just because the other parent's not holding their weight, or just because, you know, other people kind of get applauded for doing the bare minimum, doesn't mean that it's right, and doesn't mean that you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. So we just wanted to make sure that you knew that. But share your thoughts, do all the things, social media, make sure you use the email address, the singleparentspodcast@gmail.com. But this was good. I'm glad we did this again.
And I'm gonna go on the
awesome. I
other limb
love
there.
it.
If
I
you're the
love it.
other parent that, you know, is not quite so super involved,
Yeah.
whether by choice or by circumstance. If it's by circumstance, honestly, like Anthony said, do what you can.
Yeah,
that does
sure.
matter. Like
Yeah.
time is not like, they may be more familiar with one parent, but that's about it. Like how you handle your time, that's an entirely different thing. But for those who, you know, parenting really isn't for you, and maybe you figure that out after you had kids, whatever the situation is, please just don't make it your kid's problem. Like, if you genuinely don't want to parent, that's fine. It's as long as your kid is somewhere where they are healthy and loved and taken care of, that's fine. Like, nobody's forcing you into that. Maybe like, you know, societal expectation or pressure or whatever, but honestly, life is too short to worry what anybody thinks, anybody at all. That's not a good reason to do anything because you think you're going to be judged.
Yes.
If you're struggling with the idea of being a parent and it is just too damn much, and maybe it's not for you, and maybe you feel like, well, I do love my kid. I'm going to be honest, even if you do love your kid, or if you don't, regardless, don't be their problem. Like, if you're not ready to parent, or you have parented and it's just not for you, whatever you do, please do not make it their problem. Don't like be in and out, but only here, but say you'll be here, and don't be there. Don't put unfair expectations on your child. You can talk to the other parent. Like, if it's just something that's too much for you, be honest with the other parent or whomever is taking care of your kid. But do not put your child through an emotional seesaw their whole childhood because you can't figure your shit out and you think you're supposed to. Okay, sorry.
Boom. Nope. That's I love it. I love it. I do like a mic drop right now, but this is not a cheap mic, so I don't want to mess that up. But no, this was good. I appreciate it. And you know what? I think that's going to get ready to do it with that figurative, not literal mic drop. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in to another episode of the Single Parents Podcast. I'm Anthony, and this is Nicole. Boom, boom, boom.
I'm so excited to be back.
This is so good. I love it. I hope you all
know.
come back. I really do, because we got some more spicy things to talk about in the future.
Believe it or not, this was like one of the tamer
yeah.
topic choices for today.
Little tease. So until next time, don't forget, you all out there, you just keep doing the best you can. Bye.
And you're killing it. You really are.
Yes, you are. Don't forget. See ya. Why am I talking to you like you're a dog? But
I love it.
You're so good.
We're
You're
meditating.
So good.
You guys,
so
seriously,
good.
start meditating.
I like it.
Let's go.